All right, well, in computer science, our traditional greeting is hello world, so hello world. My task this evening is to join our identities as scholars and saints. And so I want to explain what I think is a particularly Mormon moral obligation we assume as members of the Stanford LDS community. When I think about what is different about myself now versus when I arrived here 1 year ago, the thing that stands out the most is the degree to which people care about my voice. To the newly arriving students here this evening, graduate and undergraduate, you will soon experience the same thing. For the rest of your life, people will care about what you say to a degree that they did not before and would not otherwise because of your association with Stanford. Not only by virtue of the name Stanford, but also by the skills that you acquire here, or for our alumni did acquire here. In my classes, I've taught students the fundamentals of how to directly manage the memory of the computer. These are the same fundamentals behind the infamous Heartbleed computer security vulnerability. This is powerful stuff. All of you are much more likely to have close access to those in charge or to be in charge yourself wherever you go in life because of Stanford. In writing, teaching, speaking, leading, and in meetings of all kinds, your voice has been granted a new and powerful megaphone. I want to talk about what you will do with that voice. So let's talk about meetings. Since coming to Stanford, I've been in innumerable of them. New students, I'm sorry to say that you should anticipate the same in your future. My usual strategy in meetings is that I concern myself very much with who will be there. I want to know their names, I want to know their job titles, their backgrounds, I want to know who the VIPs are, and I want to know who in this meeting reports to me. I pay careful attention to where these people sit and where I sit in relation to them. As Sheryl Sandberg wisely advises, I lean in. Oh, this is all good strategy, and I recommend the strategy to you on that account. But today we consider our Mormon moral obligation associated with the louder voice we've been granted, and I invite all of us to bring a new strategy to meetings. That new strategy is to focus more on who is not in the room. Because we are there and others are not, do we not have an obligation to think of them and say what they would say if they were in the room? Esther, queen in the Old Testament, shows us the way. She had a special access to the king that none of the rest of her people had. Rather than concerning herself primarily with how she might impress the VIPs in the room, she kept in her heart and mind those who were not in the room and courageously used her voice to speak for them. In business, law, technology, academia, government, and in the church, are we not obligated to do the same? I echo to you the words of Esther's adoptive father, Mordecai, to her, "Who knows but thou art come here for such a time as this?" You may be wondering why I consider this to be a particularly Mormon moral obligation. My inspiration for this talk comes from the temple. For our guests, I will explain that when we enter that holy house, we are given a small slip of paper bearing the name of a deceased person, often one of our own cherished ancestors. In a room on earth where they can no longer be, we say on their behalf the words they can no longer say. In the meetings of our daily lives, will we perform this same service? If the business plan grinds the face of the poor who have no seat at a boardroom table, if the law serves a few at the expense of the many, if the script we are writing has no worthy role models for our girls, will you reach in your pocket and imagine there holding a small paper bearing the names of those who need you to speak for them? Will you be the one to say in that meeting the words they cannot say? Can I ask something even more difficult of you? Can I ask you to do this before you are the #1 VIP in the room? As Stanford graduates, you are not unlikely to be the #1 VIP in the room, but don't wait. As Queen Esther had access to the king in a way no other Jews had, but her very life was completely at his mercy. She did not wait until she had tenure or made partner or the options vested or the next round of funding closed before using her voice. She was as junior and associate as there was on that court, but she used what access she did have to be a voice for the voiceless. I invite each of us to be that voice, to say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.